Greetings, fencers. So this is going to help explain right of way, and I'm going to go through actual tournament footage from Bratislava Fecht, which used right of way. Because if you don't understand it, you probably don't have the best grasp of vor and nach, or before and after. This isn't trying to defend having it in tournaments. It can be fun to have, but it has negatives. However, it is only positive for having it in your fencing training, so you can understand and dissect fencing and what went wrong, which decision was bad in a double hit. So first, right of way only comes into play in a double hit, and it's a way of giving priority, meaning who gets the point. Now everyone can understand that to an extent. I think we've all seen someone shell up and thrust low as they get hit in the head, so this right of way actually got written into many rule sets.
A faulted double is when one fighter is in a high aggressive position and the other fighter tries to land a thrust underneath while the attack is coming down. This shows no regard for their own safety and will result in a 2-point penalty for the fighter throwing this thrust.
This is because a regular cut one to the head is a basic fencing action, and so you're expected to try to block it. The thrust doesn't block it, so the fencer made a bad decision. Right of way in the full rule set form is applying that to every type of fencing action, to see who made the better choice and who deserves the point. Here we'll start with the onset or first action, where no one has right of way or the before. Now in Olympic fencing, it pretty much just gets judged as whoever is moving forward gets right of way, which is not how the rule set was originally written. Here's an example where my opponent moves forwards and gets too close, and I extend my arm and hit before he even starts moving his arm. He, however, gets the point because there's one ref needing to make a split-second decision, and it's generally just going to be who's moving forward first. And that's why you get the big race at the start of sports saber matches. Historical right of way is going to be based on who gets their arms extended first. Stuff can be a little different when we're dealing with cuts from Fomtag, but to make it clearly visible, you want your arms extended first to guarantee that your attack is clearly defined and visible, and your opponent cannot ignore and has to parry it. If they double, then you have priority, because you did your job right, and they didn't make the best decision with the information available to them. When someone attacks, you parry, dodge, or counter. Then when you have parried, you have priority now, or the fore, or right of way. So if someone tries to attack twice, which could be called a remise, they will actually not have right of way. If there's a double hit, the riposte beats the remise. Because when you parry, you riposte. You're supposed to attack. So the remise was a bad choice, because you should know when you get parried, they are attacking back at you, unless they clearly hesitate, retreat, or are too slow making a riposte. And so this covers most of the close fencing. Parry riposte may go back and forth, and you can follow the right of way throughout. A dodge will also take the right of way back, and is the same as a parry. Both of these vor and nach choices appear in the Zettel, in the nach section for parries, and the nachreißen section for dodging. The last little bit of right of way is centerline based. If someone has a clearly visible long point, and someone attacks into it, impaling themselves, then the person in long point has priority in a double hit, because the attacker has that information out front of them, that there's a pointy sword right there, and they need to deal with it. However, if the person in long point takes their point offline at all, with a big disengage, etc., then they lost priority in that double. And so to take right away from someone in long point, you can beat at the start of your attack. This takes their point offline, so they lost their right of way. And if they bring their sword back to double out, then they don't have priority, because they can clearly see an attack coming at them that they need to parry. So in general, right of way is about forcing people to have self-preservation and try to not die. And you can put it in rules to different extents, like no priority to leg attacks, etc. But it has negative side effects, like getting away with less safe onset attacks, and ripostes that weren't a good choice against a remise. These first examples are a simple use of priority or right of way. Two-handed hits would get the point over a one-handed hit in a double. So I got the point in all of these exchanges. And this does a really good job of reducing one-handed cuts and thrusts. I didn't use any committed one-handed attacks in this tournament. Now here is a winning exchange that the judges did video review for. Once it's in slow motion, the hits seem far apart, but live, they felt simultaneous. And I wasn't sure I would get the point. Because here, Miro does actually get his arms mostly extended for his cut before me. However, you can see he turns his initial attack into a feint and starts to cut low. This loses his right of way. And right in that transition from his feint to his actual attack, I get my arms extended fully for my hit. So I got my arms fully extended first when comparing the actual attacks. Here's another match point. I actually don't know if it was a double. The other thrust might have missed, but even if it was, we can still learn from it. Here Max advances and goes for a disengage. However, the arms don't fully extend, which means he has not taken right of way yet. And it also doesn't trigger threat to me, so I counterattack into it. I'm able to get my arms extended first during this disengage, which takes priority. Again in a transition from a feint. My arms don't get fully extended because he ends up getting so close. Here I thrust and he parries. I then push hard into his strong to parry his first riposte, because I had already been hit by it twice. I then parry his remise, which would probably look like his riposte to a judge. Then we both cut around, him with a remise and me with a riposte. They both land, but riposte has priority, which means that right of way really nerfs the Zwergkopter as a tactic, because that's usually a remise. Here's the winning point in the finals. I feint and make a left undercut, and he parries. I remain in my hanging to parry his riposte. And then we both cut around. Him with a remise, and me with a riposte. So I get right of way. Thanks for watching, keep studying, keep practicing.